Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you're a coffee lover, you definitely know this feeling. You go out, you buy these gorgeous, locally roasted beans, you bring them home, you're so excited, and the coffee you make is, well, it's just kind of blah. So what is the secret to unlocking that amazing flavor you know is hiding in there? Well, let's get into it.
You know, it's one of the most common and honestly, most frustrating things in the world of coffee. One day it's too bitter, the next it's weak and sour, but it almost never tastes as good as it smells right out of the bag. And you're just left there thinking, is it me? Is it the beans? Maybe I'm just not cut out to be a home barista. But here's the thing, it's probably not your beans. And it might not even be your coffee maker. The real culprit is a single, often totally overlooked tool that has a massive, and I mean massive, impact on flavor. It is the missing piece of the puzzle that really changes everything. To find that missing piece, we gotta look at a little bit of science first. Now don't worry, it's super simple, but it is the absolute foundation for brewing incredible coffee. It all comes down to one single process: extraction. Extraction is really just a fancy word for what happens when hot water hits your coffee grounds. The water acts as a solvent, and its job is to pull all those delicious flavors and aromas out of the beans and into your cup. You can think of it like making tea, just with a whole lot more going on. Now, what's so fascinating is that not all these flavors come out at the same time. It happens in stages. First, the water pulls out the acids and salts, which, on their own, taste pretty sour. Next up are the sugars, which bring all that sweetness and balance. And finally, way at the end, the heavy, bitter compounds dissolve. So the whole game is about control. The goal is to stop the brewing process right in that beautiful middle phase, that sweet spot, where you've gotten all the delicious sugars, but before you've pulled out too many of those harsh, bitter notes. That balance is everything. And you'll know you've nailed it when the coffee just tastes right. When you get that wonderful sweetness and that smooth, pleasant feeling in your mouth, that's the sign. That's when you know your extraction was spot on. Okay, so how do we get that control? How do we hit that sweet spot every single time? Well, while things like brew time and temperature do matter, they're not the biggest lever you can pull. The single most powerful variable you have is the size of your coffee grounds. Just picture a single coffee bean. Now imagine cutting it in half. You've just exposed all that interior surface to the water, right? The more you break that bean down, the finer you grind it, the more surface area you create. And more surface area means the water can pull flavor out way, way faster. And this brings us right to the heart of the problem. If your grinder gives you a big mix of large particles, let's call them boulders, and tiny, powdery particles, we'll call those fines, you're basically trying to brew two different coffees at once. The big boulders don't have enough time to extract, so they give you sour, weak flavors. At the exact same time, the tiny fines extract way too fast, giving you harsh, bitter flavors. And here it is, the big aha moment. These two bad flavors, the sour and the bitter, they don't cancel each other out and create something good. No way. Instead, you get a cup of coffee that is somehow both sour and bitter at the same time. It's just a confusing, messy, unsatisfying flavor. This is what coffee people call a muddy cup. So what in the world is creating this disaster of boulders and fines? Well, the answer is in the tool you're using. So let's look at the two main types of coffee grinders, because they work in completely different ways. First up, you've got the blade grinder. It's super common, it's affordable, but it basically works like a blender. A little spinning blade just violently smashes and chops the beans into random pieces. Not only does this create that awful mix of powder and chunks, but all that friction from the high-speed blade actually creates heat, which can start to scorch your coffee before you've even brewed it. A burr grinder, on the other hand, is a completely different animal. It doesn't use blades at all. Instead, it channels the beans between two abrasive surfaces, called burrs, that precisely crush them into a much more uniform and consistent size. It's a gentle, controlled process, not a chaotic one. So let's just put them side by side. The blade grinder is a chopper. It gives you inconsistent particles, and your only control is just guessing how long to press a button. The burr grinder is a crusher. It gives you uniform particles and precise, repeatable settings. It is literally the difference between chaos and control. In fact, a lot of coffee experts talk about the three pillars of great coffee. Of course, you need great beans, you need good filtered water, but that third pillar, just as important as the others, is a consistent grinder. If any one of those pillars is weak, the whole thing just falls apart.
Okay, so we know we need a consistent grind, but what size should it actually be? This is where we get super practical, because the perfect grind size depends entirely on the type of coffee maker you're using.
The rule of thumb is really simple. The longer your water is going to be in contact with the coffee grounds, the coarser your grind needs to be. You do that to slow down extraction so it doesn't get bitter. And if the contact time is super short, you need a finer grind to speed up extraction so it doesn't end up sour.
And here's a quick cheat sheet. For something like a French press, where the grounds are steeping for like 4 minutes, you want a coarse grind, something that looks like coarse sea salt. For your standard drip coffee maker or a pour-over, you're looking for a medium grind, kind of like regular sand. And for espresso, which brews in under 30 seconds, you need a really fine, almost powdery grind to get the job done.
And this, right here, is why a burr grinder is so essential. It gives you the power to dial in the exact grind size you need for your specific brewer, and get it right every single time. A blade grinder just can't do that. You'll always get a random mix of coarse, medium, and fine, no matter what you try to do.
So look, if you take only one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. Upgrading from a blade grinder to even a basic entry-level burr grinder is the single biggest, most impactful, game-changing investment you can possibly make to improve your coffee at home. Seriously, it makes more of a difference than just about anything else.
See, by getting control over your grind, you're not just a coffee maker anymore, you're a coffee creator. You now have the key to finally unlock the true potential that's been hiding inside those beans all along. All the bright fruity notes, the deep chocolates, the delicate florals. The only question left is, what are you going to discover first?